Morning, everybody. Welcome to the Texas Real Estate Show. And here we are to celebrate this wonderful day. I'm here with my good friend, Kay. How you doing, Kay?
I'm great. I'm just upset that you don't like my Halloween costume.
What are you eating today?
I have no idea what this is. An arepa?
Yeah, it's one of our agents. It was their birthday today. A Cuban guy. So we're celebrating with Cuban food. Please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. It'd help us grow the channel. We'd love to sort of hear from you and hear your comments. But today we're going to talk about something that we always have seemed to have spoke about the last few years, which is even with everything going on at the moment and the cost of housing going up, there's still a Texas housing shortage, and it's getting worse. And this report is from Houston Public Media. And it says in 2022, Texas needed about 320,000 more homes than it had, up from 306,000 homes the previous year, according to an estimate released Wednesday by Housing Policy Organization. Up for growth. Can you go down a bit? There you go. Texas has a deep housing shortage that's driving up home prices and rents. Please understand, everybody, it's all about supply and demand, and it's getting worse. In 2022, Texas needed about 320,000 more homes than it had, up from about 306 the previous year, according to an estimate released Wednesday. That shortage illustrates how Texas, which builds more homes than any other state, has struggled in the last decade to build enough homes to meet demand. And amid its economic boom, the problem undergirds the state's housing affordability woes. Home prices and rents in the state's major metropolitan regions have skyrocketed in increased competition for limited supply of homes.
So that has a huge thing to do with the fact that everyone is moving here from, different states, right?
Well, what I was going to add to that was, I told you the other day that I was looking at the data and statistics on who's moving where, and from 2019 to 2023, I believe it was, there was over 30,000. It was 30,000?
It was 30%.
Oh, that's right. The growth of Houston had gone up 30%, which is just incredible for a 4 million people city, and it's gone up 30% in, was it 5 years? It's just incredible. And they put that a lot down to because of the energy sector. There's people coming in from all over the world for the energy sector. There's a lot of foreign nationals that are coming in for the medical center, because we've got a very famous medical center in Houston. What was interesting was when I came over in '95, there was actually somebody that was being flew in on a stretcher on a plane because they had a particular type of cancer, and they was actually flying them into the medical center. So I don't know who that was paying their bill, but it must have been pretty pricey, and that was somebody from the UK. But it was that there's a lot of job opportunities in Houston for people.
I think too, the reason that it's so hard to afford and the supply and demand is that the economy is lower in Texas than it is in certain places.
It is. The cost is lower in Houston than in most of Texas, but at the same time, Texas is lower than most states.
No, that's what I mean. Like
Yeah,
the economy.
I want to sort of have another angle to that, because that's basically what it is.
Yeah, the rate of like the average salary in Houston is way less than the rest of the country, and I think we're still at $7.25 for the minimum wage, which is crazy. The minimum wage is $7.25 here, which is absolutely absurd when you think about how expensive things are going up. And people got mad at California for raising the minimum wage to $15, but people are able to live a little bit better with the minimum wage being $15, So.
Wow. But anyway, so, we've still got a problem in Houston. How we solve it at this point, I really don't know, to be perfectly honest. But, Dallas has grown significantly. It says in many Texas' biggest urban areas, the shortage worsened. It grew in the Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, San Antonio, and McAllen regions, according to Up for Growth. Even as many of those places greenlit the construction and more homes than had prior to COVID-19 pandemic. And it says Texas isn't alone. That's just what Kay was highlighting. Texas isn't alone. A nationwide shortage of homes has driven up housing costs across the US and has been discussed heavily in this year's presidential race, which we're going to discuss a little bit later on in the podcast. In its latest report, Up for Growth said the country needs 3.8 million homes to ease its housing affordability problem, slightly less than in previous years.
Yeah, I think 3.8 million homes is that's a lot of...
To me, it sounds over the top.
You think?
Yeah, I do. Because if, say, tomorrow we could add 3.8 million homes, just think that would reduce the overpriced homes, but that would put some people in a position like it was in 2008 where they owed more on their mortgage than what their home was actually worth. And in cases like that, it's a bubble and it'll burst and they'll just literally give the keys back to the bank and walk away from it. So
that's just, I don't know. There are no comments here, but they're hoping that, they will fix or at least discuss the housing crisis next year in Austin. So, hopefully that'll fix something. But yeah, they're expected to discuss it next year, so at the Capitol.
So what we got next, Miss Kay?
So next on our agenda, kind of talking about, housing shortages and things like that. We have rising rent. So, we're a big renter-based city, right, in Houston. Now we are, at the very least. So, yeah.
And I think, unfortunately, what we spoke about first and this, they're both linked together. The more the cost of a house, then the more the property taxes are going up, the more the insurance is going up to cover the cost of any hurricanes, for the replacement. Everything is just going up. The cost of the repairs is going up. And so, unfortunately, all them are underlying costs that affect investors to push up the rents. But the thing that I think is sort of pushed under the carpet is you've got these multinational investment companies who are basically buying multiple properties in areas, and they are basically setting and price fixing and price gouging the market in particular areas. And that's really some people don't understand the concept. But basically, if you've got a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, I'll give you an example. I've got a listing at the moment. It's a 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath. Some of the properties in that area are owned by multinational companies and they're 3-bedroom, 2-baths. And they are actually leasing them for, I think, a high price for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath and a half for like $1,750, $1,800. We've got a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. We're trying to lease it for I think $1,950, and we're finding it very, very difficult because we've got so many properties that are available that are 3-bedroom, 2-baths, and that they're setting that price at that level.
Wow. because it's just.
And ours is an extra bedroom bath, so
Yeah.
it affects the whole area.
Yeah. See, it makes it really hard.
Because to some people, that $150, even if they want that extra bedroom, that's a lot of money.
Mhm. Yeah, it says.
I used to find it real funny when people used to. I used to work at a car dealership, and they used to tell us never ever tell somebody what a car costs by telling them what it cost them per month. Always tell them what it cost them per week.
Oh, that's smart.
It's called the Pendlebury method.
That's smart.
Well, it's not smart because what happens is you think, oh, $25 a week, that's not bad. But if you say $100 a month, you know,
Yeah.
it sort of hits the heart a little bit harder.
I guess that's fair. But it does say in the article nearly 4 in 10 middle class renter households are burdened by costs. It says it's up almost 20% since 2019, with an already high share of cost burden. Low income households rose only 2%. So middle class up 20%. That is crazy.
All right.
Yeah.
And the evictions have started. I've got 3 this weekend, so the evictions have started for people that are not paying their rent, which is pretty unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Yeah. So some economists define middle-class households as those earning between 50 and 150% of the median income, or $40,000 to $121,000 a year. Of more than 40 million renter households in the census data survey, middle-class households account for 20.1 million, roughly 7.8 million of which are cost-burdened ones. So, what is that about? A little over a third of middle-class people are cost-burdened. So that's interesting.
Yeah. And that's why I say that I'm not making this a political thing, but more money needs to be going into the middle class, because that way it puts money into the actual economy, and that turns the economy. And then, you know, people are hopefully buying things at stores, and they're buying things on even Amazon, and it's putting money into the economy, which is turning everything. Obviously, some people are going to save from that, so that's even better.
So someone in our chat, Mosilla, said, do you think the homestead deduction will go up from $100K to help property owners and maybe move the needle for some buyers who factor in the added cost of super high property taxes and MUD?
Repeat the question.
Do you think the homestead deduction will go up from $100K to help property owners and maybe move the needle for some buyers who factor in the added cost of super high property taxes?
I think it possibly could do. I think it needs to go up. I really do. You know, I mean, in Texas, the homestead exemption this year is going up 8%, I believe. They voted on it going up 8%.
Yeah.
In Houston. I don't think personally, I think the problem is going to be next year, because you're always paying your taxes a year behind.
Right.
And basically what's happened is a lot of the prices in Houston, they've flattened off. And in some areas, the price of the houses have actually gone down. So, you know, if the prices have started to go down and flatten off, the city's going to be generating less money for property taxes.
Right. So they're going to be raising the taxes.
Well, people need to go out there and contest their taxes to pull them down again, because if not, the cities will just leave them as they are.
Yeah, and I think that's something that a lot of people don't think about when they do move to Texas, is the fact that property taxes.
That's one of the questions. That's one of the questions I ask when I list a home. I ask the seller, do you contest your taxes?
Yeah.
And if not, I even give them a recommendation of a company that I use to contest my taxes. And I said, just register with them, let them do it every year, let them contest it. Even if I don't get to sell their house, you know, And I tell them then, even when you move in for your new house, I tell them how they register to become a homestead for their new house, whether they use, me or another agent. I said, because you'd be surprised over the years what that can save you.
Yeah. So in the second part of Mosilla's question, he did say, to help move the needle for buyers who factor in the added cost of super high property taxes and MUD or MUD, and that's the apparently municipal utility taxes. So
I don't think municipal utility district taxes will go down because the cost of water is going up in the state.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that will affect that. I think homestead taxes, I think they'll try to do something about helping with that, because everybody on the planet, I think, is complaining about their property taxes.
Mm-hmm.
The difficulty is, from the state's point of view, is we don't have a state income tax. We do a sales tax.
Right.
So that's our sort of wild card where we can get out of that. But property taxes in Texas are very, very high. There's people that move in from California that we put them into houses, and they see the rate of taxes that they pay and the amount of taxes that they pay for a property, and at first they find it very, very scary.
Yeah.
But I do think they've got to do something with the property taxes, because I don't think it's helping investors, and if it's not helping the investors, it's not helping the renters, and at the same time it's making it very difficult for investors to provide quality housing, and not taking shortcuts for the repairs and such like, because it's not leaving enough money in it. And at the same time, for homeowners, it's making life very, very difficult for them.
It does say so on the information that we do have in the article. It says that the median rents have gone up about 23.4%, and median incomes have gone up by 5%. So that is a huge disparity.
It's unsustainable.
Yeah.
It really is unsustainable. What I will tell you is, I think a lot of that is multinationals.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that are causing. That's the effect of having multinationals coming in and buying up so many houses, because it drives up the cost even more. Myself, as a small investor, what I do is I put an increase on my properties between 3 and 5% per year.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell my tenants going into that, in the event that you pay your rent on time and you're never late for the year, the following year your rent will go up 3% the following year for the whole year. If you're late one month on a year, then I'll put it up 5%.
Yeah.
And that way they fully understand, they know what they're getting into, because it's important for me to get the rent at the start of the month so I can pay the mortgages that I have. What we got next, Kay?
So speaking of multinational companies, we do have something that happened in Houston that I think is very interesting and very important for people to watch. So let's just check it out and then we'll talk about it.
Well, this wasn't a multinational, multi-conglomerate company. This was just what they call a local investment company, who basically they either flip the home, they try and buy the home, and what they do is, because they're not licensed, they don't have to give people a fair price for the property. That's why I say to everybody, always get hold of a real estate agent that's licensed, make sure they're licensed, get some reviews, and get a real estate agent to basically give you an approximate value of the property. The only person that can give you an exact value of a property is an appraiser, but a real estate agent can give you what properties are sold for in a particular area, and they can give you a range. That's the best way to put it. But we've got a problem, and I've been saying this for years now, with people that are flipping houses. And what they're doing, they're trying to buy the houses for, say there's a house worth 300,000, and what they're doing is they will offer you 150,000 for the house. They will probably spend 50,000, 60,000, fixing the house up, and they'll sell it for 300,000, and they might make $90,000 on the house. Here's the problem with this. The people that it's really affecting is the lower income people, the people that can't afford to do the repairs. So they might have a lot of equity in the house, but they haven't got the cash or the means or the credit to go to a bank, get a home improvement loan to fix the house up if it needs, fixing up. So let's roll this, because this is what has been going on in Houston for the last 10 years, and it's a detriment to our community, and it's a detriment to our housing crisis.
On Fox Tonight, jurors financially punish a Sugarland company that touts buying property quickly at a fair price for defrauding a 79-year-old woman. Fox 26's Randy Wallace has this exclusive report.
Like most areas near downtown, Acres Homes is a rising star on the Houston real estate market.
That's an ideal place for a young family to get started. And those homes were moving fast, and they're moving for, if they were renovated, $300,000 and up.
I wanted to live my life out in peace among my blood relatives.
That would mean a move to Tennessee. Like a lot of homeowners, the 79-year-old great-grandmother of 20 got a card in the mail from H Real Company, LLC, doing business as Homebuy Solutions.
We see it all throughout Houston. If you have a home, if you're need to sell it quickly, give us a call. We'll give you the best price. You don't need a realtor. You don't need an agent. Just trust us.
And that's what Barbara did. Trusted Nicola Nezovic and Homebuy Solutions.
She had lived in this house for almost 25 years. So it was her single biggest asset by far.
He went around the house, inside the house, outside the house, and he came back in and he said, "Oh, this house has good bones." I said, "Thank you."
He told her you're going to net $108,000. In fact, let me write that on the contract for you so you can see that I'm writing it down. It's all chicken scratch. It's not legible.
You were led to believe that's what you were going to get, $108,000.
Absolutely.
That's not what you got, was it?
Oh, Lord knows. Do you want to know how much he gave me?
How much?
$48,000.
Barbara Rose quickly realized she made a big mistake. That's when she called her good friend Edna Griggs.
So when she called me, she was saying, she said, "You're not going to believe what I did." And so I'm like, "What?" And so she went on to tell me. And I said, "Oh my God." She said, "Well, I know if there's anybody that can help me, it can be you."
Edna contacted attorneys Paul Simon and David Tang.
Oh, yes, she did. I love that woman. She's always come through for me.
During the trial, Barbara Rose told jurors she felt it was her fault.
It was pretty much a heartbreaking moment for me to see her say that. It wasn't her fault. This guy basically tricked her, into doing it.
Turns out Barbara Rose's house was worth a whole lot more than Homebuy Solutions offered her.
We had an expert testify over $220,000 she could have gotten.
The jury found Homebuy Solutions had defrauded Barbara Rose.
I faced the jury and I said to them, "Thank you. But I want you all to put yourself in my place. It could happen to you, your mama, your grandmama."
Not only did the jury award Rose what she had asked for, she got $400,000 in punitive damages, $136,000 in actual damages, and $218,000 in attorney fees.
They said he didn't seem like he was very remorseful, and I think that's why they popped him for the $400,000.
When somebody says you don't need an agent or you can trust me, I'll give you the best price, I think you should slow down a little bit, take a step back and see what's going on.
And that's what's happening to our people in our communities. They're coming after them and they're just trying to take the land away from them. She's not the only person.
I reached out to the attorney who represented Homebuy Solutions during the trial. He had no comment. Randy Wallace, Fox 26 News.
So unfortunately, guys, it looks...
Let me just add something to all of this. You know, I own a few properties. I don't own a lot. I've got 7 properties that I've got. Some of them are condominiums, some of them are single family homes. I probably get about 15 to 18 calls a day from exactly the same companies as these, or text seeing if I want to sell my home. You know, whether that be the house that we live in or any of the investment properties. And they're predominantly looking for people because they can also tell if there's any liens on the property.
The problem too is that, you know, they're preying on elderly people.
That's exactly that. Did I not say that?
Like,
first thing off the bat, that it's like, what happens is the word commissions, realtor commissions, frightens some people off, but they don't see the value in that, because a real estate agent should earn their value and show value, a good real estate agent, by they're going to be, you know, they're going to be up front and they're going to make sure that you get what you deserve for your property. And if it's somebody just calling up and saying no agents, no commissions, no nothing, no this, I'll give you, you know, a fair value. What's a fair value? It's such an open thing. But what they're going to do is they're actually going to put in their profit in the calculations that they make. And they're going to get you to pay all the costs to close so they can get what they want to sell the property, because they don't want to sell the property too high. They want to be competitive on the price that they resell it for, so they can sell the property as fast as they can to reduce their holding costs.
okay. Well, that's a good word of advice. You know.
Mm-hmm. So what do we got?
The next thing that we have is kind of, you know, going in with people trying to, I guess, swindle people. We have, I don't know if this, I don't want to say that he's trying to swindle people, but we have a mayor in Maine.
I don't think he was trying to swindle people.
Yeah, he wasn't trying
but
to.
he was giving, to me, he was giving people bad advice.
Horrible
And
advice.
and one of the things that I think that's even worse than that, as a real estate agent, I cannot give anybody loan advice. The only person that gives somebody loan advice is, you know, a qualified loan officer, or, you know, a banker. And here you've got the mayor of South Portland, Misha Pride, who's telling seniors to take out a reverse mortgage so they can afford their city's sharp increase in property taxes, which I think is completely, you know, ridiculous. I mean, I know all the costs are going up and everything. Can't seniors stop their property taxes and then they just accrue?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I thought in some states they let them do that. Perhaps Portland is not one of them. But in some states, what they will do, seniors won't have to pay their property taxes, but when the probate part comes, then they take the property taxes. But just run this tape. It's pretty horrible when you get a mayor telling you your senior citizens to take a reverse mortgage.
It's really unfortunate. I'm really sad, and you know, my taxes are going up too, and have every year for the last 5 years. Seeing as our property values are so high, seniors may want to consider a reverse mortgage. I know it's an ugly word, but there are, I'm just saying, I know it's horrible, but it's sort of a last resort.
Yeah, so he's saying it as a last resort, but that's crazy last resort.
And I think reverse
Nice.
mortgages to me aren't the best. What a reverse mortgage is, just so everybody knows, is it'll take the equity out of your house and it'll basically pay you monthly in monthly payments, you know, for the equity. As long as there's equity in the house, they'll do that. When the equity runs out, then at that time, you know, you'll normally be asked to leave the house. And basically that's basically it. I think it's a shame, because if I've got a house, I'd like to leave it to my children, even with half of the garbage that we've got in the house. I'd like to leave that, you know. Like a lot of my skating memorabilia, although I don't know what they're going to do with it. But
I think he did say, you know, this is he updated the article. He said it might not have been the best advice, and then he said, I just sort of throw this out there because I've also been thinking a lot about how especially those with fixed incomes can deal with this. It is kind of a last resort measure, but seeing as our property values are so high, seniors may want to consider the reverse.
But you know
mortgage.
what's very disappointing? We manage homeowners associations. There's a lot of retirement people that decide to move to condominium living. They sell their house, they downsize, and they move into a condominium or a townhouse. And what happens is you've got monthly homeowners associations to pay. So they sell their house, they downsize, they pay for the home cash, and then they've got homeowners association fees. I bought a property 3 years ago, and the HOA fees went from $331 a month to $788 a month, all right, in 1 year, and there was a special assessment of $6,000. So, you know, condominium living can prove expensive because HOA fees are going up. And normally people that live in condominiums and that live in different areas, they're on fixed incomes, and that's one of the biggest challenges that we have, especially for baby boomers and, you know, for a lot of people out there.
Yeah, it's pretty I think it's pretty frustrating to kind of hear someone say, you know, another YouTuber described it as, you know, going bankrupt essentially to pay for your mortgage. And it's really disheartening too, because buying a home used to be like the main thing for Americans. That was the biggest staple of the American dream. So with the rising homeowners costs, and like you said, even HOA fees if you live in a condominium, and, you know, property taxes and all of this, I think, you know, it is really heartbreaking for seniors, just because they probably worked their entire lives to be able to purchase that one home. You know, if they're struggling, that one home they probably worked so hard for.
Do you know the part that I personally find really hard with property taxes? For the properties that I've got that have got mortgages on, all right, the property taxes are escrowed and the insurance is escrowed every month, so it's a definite payment every month. For the properties that I own free and clear, I put X amount of dollars a month in to an account to pay them property taxes for that property. But if I have a bad month, for whether it be for collections or whether it be for I've got to repair something and I'm not making the income that I should do, then I've got a problem when it comes to the end of the year. So it's, you know, it comes a bit of a shock, because some of them property taxes, when they come round, can really mount up.
Right.
We've got one agent in this office, his property taxes that he pays at the end of the year is over $300,000.
Wow. See, that's absurd. And one of the last things that we have to kind of speak about is, we're going to talk about, you know, we've gone through all of this. We are, 5 days away from the presidential election, so we're just going to talk about what the changes, you know, in housing and things of that nature might look like under each presidential candidate. So, let's see.
And we'll try and do this as sort of
Neutral as possible.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Right now.
Kamala Harris. It's up, good debate.
Nice to see you. Have fun.
Thank you.
Do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing. And the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit.
We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation has, which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history.
For 52 years, they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also.
The majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body, and that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I have to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. You should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer
That's
the
problem.
question? Would you
because
veto?
Under Roe v. Wade,
Answer the question. Would you veto?
You could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th month.
That's not true. And he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you.
She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. The people on television say my dog was taken and used for food.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
But the people
I'm
on
taking
television
it from the city
saying
manager.
their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme.
Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. No, I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her.
I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race.
Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down, all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has
the housing part.
Yeah, I'm not
in a presidential debate and deny what.
Why is it blowing up? He said because you need Trump back as president.
Yeah, let's just talk about it.
okay.
Because we don't want into the politics of it, so let's just get through to. But basically, what people are saying about the two sides, which between Kamala Harris and Trump, is that the affordable housing is one of America's top economic concerns heading into the election, and its details is what the Harris plan and the Trump plan have proposed to address these worries. And as election day is just around the corner, whichever way you vote, please get out there, and vote. But basically what they're saying is that Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump have both pledged to address high prices by boosting the supply of homes. They've also floated plans to increase affordable housing while offering different viewpoints on home construction in rural and urban areas. Detailed below are 4 elements of the housing equation and what both Harris and Trump camps have proposed or already done. Could you take it down, please, Kay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hold on. This is okay. Increasing housing supply. Harris has said that she would work with private sector and home builders to construct 3 million homes by the end of the term. She also plans to create a 40 billion federal innovation fund that would encourage local governments to build housing. This is in response to a US housing shortage. I think it would be really good to have an investment fund that even the public could invest in if they want to, which would be a billion, like a federal innovation fund.
Yeah.
So if people want to save money, they'd be sort of helping themselves in a way, because then they could invest money just like a share. And then the number of US families increased by 1.8 million, which is just 1.4 million. The Democratic candidate also said that she planned that the low-income housing tax credit, which incentivizes the rehabilitation or building of housing targeted at lower-income households. Harris is trying to increase the supply of townhomes, duplexes, and condos so that people can have an easier step into the housing ladder than what they currently have. Dol with the chief economist, okay?
Yeah. So I do want to say that the thing about this is, it does say that there was a 1.8 million increase with 1.4 million housing units were built. But that's still I don't know. That's a hard, thing to say. And then they're saying that, she plans to expand the low income tax credit, but it's really frustrating because I'm not seeing anything from the other presidential candidate.
Oh, it's there. You've gone past it.
Okay.
You went past it. Go down. Go up.
Oh, right here.
It says, though Trump has said, a paragraph above it, though Trump has said that he would offer tax incentives for first-time home buyers, his campaign has not released details about the amount of aid. As President Trump proposed major cuts to the US Department of Housing and Urban Development budget, which doesn't make sense because he's trying to cut all these government departments so so the government isn't involved in your lives so much. You know, there's some areas where we need support, and HUD, I think, is so important. They provide mortgages for families that find it hard to get qualified, you know, for housing, because if you have what they call a non-qualifying mortgage, you've normally got to put 20% down. Qualifying income for household is able to afford a typical price for a home right now, which is 6 figures. One of the things which I find a bit frustrating about Trump is he says he's got these plans, but he says he hasn't got the details to the plans.
It does say that, but then right underneath, it's like they're completely opposite, because he says that he's proposing major cuts to the budget, including slashing housing assistance.
Right.
So how, you know,
how is he going to implement the plan?
Yeah, how is he going to implement the tax incentives if he's slashing the budget? So.
But then he's also said he's going to give tax incentives to builders to build the homes.
Yeah.
Well, to me, the tax incentives need to go to the first-time home buyers.
Yeah, and someone, you know, Jessica Lautz made a great point. She said qualifying income for a household to be able to afford the typical price of a home right now is 6 figures, and that can be really impossible to imagine for someone who is a school teacher. Yeah. Which it is. I think school teachers make maybe $50,000 a year. That's maybe.
One of the other things that Trump wants to do is he wants to get rid of the red tape that builders have to go through to build the homes. So do you really want to have a house that perhaps the standard of the building, you understand?
Right.
He wants to reduce the permitting of the houses. I don't know if you could find that. I've seen it on the article somewhere, Kay, where
let's see.
While the White House, Trump opposed the construction of high density housing in single family areas, saying that it would save the suburbs from the Democratic Party. It's ridiculous. It's unclear whether we're trying to do this. Harris said that she would take action against corporate landlords. I think that would be a huge plus for everybody.
Yeah.
This response is nearly half of America's renters. 30% of rentals in America are cost burdened by corporate landlords.
Yeah, and that's what that's what we were saying right before this. We were talking about the fact that the average person, you know, middle class, so someone making between $40,000 and $112,000 are considered cost burdened for, you know, their homes. So that goes, you know, into exactly what we were saying. So hopefully, and Trump did say he wants construction of more housing, which would include rental units and homes. He just has not provided how the plan would affect renters. So I think what we have, one of the things that we have with, on one side, we have someone who has like a clear cut, you know, like a clear cut plan on what they actually do plan to implement. And on the other side, we have someone who it's really hard to put faith into it, just because of the fact that, yes, he wants to, you know, build more homes and things of that nature. However, you also want to you want to slash the urban development sector.
The thing that worries me about the Trump plan here more than else is he wants to cut the government red tape with the permits. So you can just go ahead and build whatever you want with no permits at all. You know, so when somebody puts that's the biggest investment of their life, you know, do you know that the plumbing is up to scratch? Do you know that the electric's up to scratch?
Right.
Do you know that everything's done properly? You know, because it's more costly when you put a plumbing pipe in a wall or an electric line in a wall, and then to correct something, you've got to take all the sheetrock off and then put it back and paint it.
Mm-hmm.
So. What's the next article?
That's all we have, unless we have one last thing that is kind of ridiculous and really heartbreaking.
This was a home in California that, as you can see by the photo, he had a bit of a foundation problem.
Mm-hmm.
His home was swept away by a hurricane, but basically
in Florida,
he can't use the house anymore unless he gets a few step ladders, and the bank basically saying that he's still got to pay the loan.
Yeah.
They refused to write it off, so I don't know if he had any insurance on the house. I don't know if the insurance wouldn't cover it. It basically says in the 2024 hurricane season has caused massive destruction with Hurricane Helene, devastating parts of southeast, and Hurricane Milton plowing through Florida. Watch our video tomorrow, because one of the we've got a video that we're releasing tomorrow, and on there it basically says one of the things you've got to consider when you buy a house is I think the top 9 or 10 things that you need to consider when you buy a house is you've got to consider the location on where you're actually buying the house, and one of them is beachfront properties. You know, you're at high risk for events just like this. So,
yeah, so I think this is a big thing. I like the way that this article says. It says your mortgage does not disappear after a disaster, unfortunately. When you commit to paying a mortgage, the bank gives you money to buy a home. The house serves as collateral guaranteeing the loan, but you don't just get to walk away from your contractual obligations if something happens to the collateral. You still borrowed the money in the first place. So sadly, this means that the banks still expect you to pay as promised, even if the home is destroyed. And that's the reason why banks require you to buy homeowners insurance before they allow you to close on a loan. So it's supposed to pay out the money to cover the losses, which I don't know how, I don't know how a bank is going to cover the losses of an entire home. His home literally flew up in the air.
He should have had coverage. There's a number of coverages that he should have had. Was one, regular wall-to-wall, home coverage. The other one is, is like hurricane coverage. You with me?
Yeah. I think it's it's kind of hard though, because
it is difficult. And it's expensive.
It's difficult and it's expensive.
It's very expensive.
And we've had a horrible hurricane season this year, so it is probably also just so much harder to prep for that, because even we talked about we were not prepared for Hurricane Beryl in Houston. So I can't imagine with her. They had Hurricane Beryl, they had
Didn't even think Hurricane Beryl was going to hit us.
Exactly. They had Hurricane Beryl, they had Hurricane Helene, and they had Hurricane Milton, all within the span of 2.5 months. So that foundation was probably getting knocked around every few weeks. You got that foundation getting knocked around. So it's one of those things that it's really hard to
Anyway, everybody, please like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Come and join our community. Please help the channel grow. We'd love to hear from you. Please post your comments in the chat. If there's anything that you want to discuss or talk about, we'd love to sort of, get into the weeds if you want. From me, Stephen Williams, over at Century 21 Olympian, we'd like to thank you for joining us. If not, join us in the future. Look at some of our other videos and see what you think, and please pass some comments. So we'd love to hear from you. So from Kay and Stephen over at Century 21 Olympian, that's Stephen Williams, I'm the host. Thanks for joining us. Ta-da for now. Please give us a thumbs up, and ta-da for now.
Happy Halloween.